Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Easy 11 Plus live lesson on rounding and estimation. I wasn't checking what the lesson about, I was just checking that the microphone's working. Next thing your comments will start to flow in. Yes, Tony Cotton first there. And I'll know that you're there too and everything is right with the world. There have been loads of people in the comments I saw earlier asking where was Robert last week, as though the lack of an Easy 11 Plus lesson is some kind of herald of the apocalypse. I was having a week off. There isn't anything deeper or darker than that. Right, so what was I going to do? I was going to say, don't forget to check out the links in the video description, where there are lots of fantastically useful things. And also there's the free worksheet for today's lesson. If you haven't done worksheet yet, don't panic. You can do it after the lesson, or you can pause the lesson and do it now and come back later, whatever you want. In general, it's really useful to do the worksheet before we go through the lesson, because then you learn more. If you want to get the worksheets before each lesson, sign up to my mailing list. And the best way to do that is to sign up for the free resources linked in the video description. Hello, Hannah Bere, who wants a shout out and says my videos are really helpful. Fantastic. I'm not going to shout out to everybody. Everybody seems to think I'm a tomato in the cover image for today's lesson. Isn't it obvious that I'm a bowling ball? Look at the number on the side. Anyway, it's just a terrible visual pun that I've been rounded, like the numbers in this lesson. Anything else useful in the comments? No, of course there's nothing useful in the comments. Carlin Master, it is an apocalypse without Robert. Exactly. Indeed. Right, let's get cracking. Let's do some maths before people get too bored of me just talking. So, here's the beginning of the worksheet for today's lesson. Oh yes. And we need to start by doing some simple rounding. Now, you'll probably find much of the stuff here very simple, but it should be useful revision, and perhaps some of it won't be so easy. Round 325.48 to the following degrees of accuracy, to the nearest 100. This may be obvious to you, but let's just talk through it quickly. We imagine a number line, okay? Here on the number line is 300. And here, oops, that's 300, honestly. Here is 400. And here's our number line between them, okay? So where do we place 325.48 on this number line? Well, 350 would be about here. 325 is further back, it's about here. So we can tell that 325.48 is clearly nearer to 300 than to 400. So rounded to the nearest 100, it is going to be 300, of course. Okay? You don't need to draw that working out. You can do it in your head, absolutely fine. But the key thing with rounding is that rather than memorizing lots and lots of rules, we do need a few rules, but rather than memorizing loads of rules, the most important thing is to be able to clearly visualize number lines in your mind, and when they aren't completely clear in your mind, to draw them on the page. What is it to the nearest 10? Okay, so now we do a similar number line. Okay, and we've got 320 here and 330 here. Okay, and in between we're going to have 325. So we can see from this that if it is above 325, it's clearly going to round up to 330, and if it's below, it's clearly going to round down to 320. And because it's 325.48, that was terrible circling, 325.48, so 325 and a bit, it's clearly above 325, and so it goes up. Okay, so we're going to head, it's going to be somewhere around here, and we're going to head up to 330. Okay. So rounding to the nearest 10, similarly simple. Now that's the worst 3 in the world. I'm going to cross that out and do another one. There we are. Second worst 3 in the world. That's an improvement. Parminder says, Mr. Robert, may I have please have a shout out? Yes, Mr. Parminder. You may. So, yeah. Now you get used to this. The thought process says, right, 325.48. So the two tens it could be nearer to 320 or 330. Is it 325 or above? Yes, it is, so it goes up 330. And you get used to doing that so quickly you barely need to think about it. Nearest whole number. So that's going to be 325 or 326. Which is it nearest to? Okay, so rather than drawing a number line, let's think about this. If it's 325.5 or above, it's going to go up to 326. That's the rule, isn't it? If it's 0.5 or more, it goes up. If it isn't, it goes down. 325.48, okay, so we're just looking at this digit here. Is that 5 or above? No, it isn't. It's below, so we go down to 325. Okay, Someone's saying they're here at church. Well, you can, yeah. I'm doing this with the window right next to me wide open because it's really, really hot right now, and I would be cooking if the window wasn't open. But that means you'll hear the odd car, the odd church bell, whatever it might be. Okay, nearest whole number, 325, to one decimal place. Right, now we're getting into the kind of slightly technical side of it where you need to know some rules. But rounding to one decimal place, two decimal places, or whatever is really straightforward. Someone with the most complicated username ever wants a shout out. Pneumono ultra microscopic silico volcano coniosis wants a shout out. I'm not giving you a shout out, you expect me to read your name. Okay, to one decimal place, 325.48. So one decimal place means we're rounding to the first digit after the decimal point, okay? So that's here. So our question is it going to be 325.4 or 325.5, okay? Which of these are we going to end up with? 325.48. So what we do is we look at the next digit and we say, is this going to take us up or down? And if this digit here is 5 or above, we go up. So we'd end up here. And if it isn't 5 or above, then we stay down. So we end up here, okay? Now 8 is 5 or above, so we round up. So we end up with this one, 325.5, okay? So we've got one digit after the decimal point, and 4 has rounded up to 5 because the next digit is 5 or above. You can think of this again as a number line. You should always have the number line in your mind, even if you're just applying the rule. So 325.4. In fact, let's just do the 0.4. So we've got 0.4 and we got 0.5. Okay, here's the number line between those two. 0.48 is up at this end, near to 5. So you can see from this that it's clearly going to round up. So always have that number line in your mind. Carlin Master wants a shout out. There you go. Kartik says it's a lung disease. That isn't very nice. Okay, onwards. Round 649 to the nearest 100. The problem here is I've got the window open right next to me. It's hot. There's another window open. There's a door in the kitchen. I've got a bit of a through draft, but I've also got these lights shining on me so I can do this stream, and they're starting to cook me. You're going to start seeing the sweat trickling down my forehead and plopping onto the table before long, and it's going to be disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Right, round 649 to the nearest 100. Okay, so 649, does it go down to 600 or up to 700? So, wait for it, we want to know, is it 650 or above or not? Is it below 650? 649 is below 650, so we go down to 600. Do you see the process I'm going through with all of these? It's really important that you have this process because it makes things simple. The first step is to give yourself the two options, okay, before you do anything else. So with this one, the two options are 600 or 700. With the previous one, the two options were 325.4 or 325.5. Before that, the options were 325 or 326, and so on. So you need to know what the options are, then remind yourself of the rule. So in this case, you're saying 650 or above goes up, and below 650 goes down. And then you just need to check the numbers and you've got the answer. Get used to that process and you won't get these wrong. Round 832 to the nearest 10, okay? It's going to be 830 or 840. Is 832 nearer to 830 or 840? It's clearly nearer to 830. It's so obviously nearer that you don't necessarily need to do the is it 5 or above thing. You can see that's right down there next to 830. A number has been rounded to the nearest 10 to give 370. What is the smallest whole number possible? Okay, so let's imagine that this question really confuses you. There are lots of words there, you're not quite sure what it means. So let's just start playing around. Let's say that you had 361. And you have to round it to the nearest 10. What do you get? You're going to get 360, okay? Okay. But then let's say it was 367. Well, that would round up to give 370. So somewhere between those numbers is the smallest number that still rounds up to 370, okay? So what's it going to be? So 364, that would go down. 366, that would go up. 365, that would go up. Because 5 or above goes up. So 365 must be the smallest number that still rounds up to 370, okay? If you know the rule, if the wording of the question doesn't confuse you, then it's fine, then we're hunky-dory. But if the question does confuse you, and I always say this with maths, it's such an important tip, just start writing things down. So just start rounding things that are near this number to the nearest 10. We tried 361, it went down. We tried 367, it went up. And then we worked out what was going on, and then we could solve the problem. Chubbs sends greetings from Jupiter. You come in peace, or in peace. I'm glad that you come in peace, but if you're in Jupiter, you're still quite a long way away. I feel like I'm kind of sitting pretty. Round 6.275 to 2 decimal places. Okay, more rounding to decimal places. Practice makes happy. I know you really enjoy these questions. Farzana says, wasn't the worksheet so easy? I'm glad you found it easy. Some people will find it easy if they've practiced this stuff a lot, but you have to remember that some people come to these lessons before they finish their primary school course, and they haven't covered everything, so they won't necessarily find it easy, and that doesn't mean that they're stupid. Round 6.275 to 2 decimal places. Okay, let's write it out a little bit larger. Come on, work pen, there we are. 6.275. Okay, 2 decimal places means we want 2 numbers after the decimal point, yes? So we want to know what this is. Does it stay as 7 or does it go up to 8? So we look at the next digit and say, is that 5 or above? Because if it is, it'll go up. It is 5 or above, so 6.27 becomes 6.28. Okay? I'm explaining this as though you've been taught it before, as though this is just revision. I do understand that if you've never covered this, what I'm doing here might be slightly confusing. But you will cover it at school if you haven't already. And if you have covered it, this will make sense. Round 208,567 to the nearest 100. It really helps to do what I've just done and say the number to yourself, because 208,567 gives us an enormous steer, okay? It gives us a really strong hint of where we're going. So it's either going to be 208,500 or 208,600, of course. So is it nearer to, we can kind of ignore this stuff here, pretend it's not there. Is it nearer to 500 or to 600? Well, if it's 550 or above, it's going up to 600. To put it another way, 567, you can just see that that is nearer to 600 than to 500. So if we unblock out, we're going magic. We're going to end up nearer to 208,600. Okay, same process that I've gone through so many times already today. I know it's that boring. We need to work out what our options are before we work out which one to head towards. Round 0.2499 to 3 decimal places. Okay, this is about as tricky as it gets, because this is the one with the annoying trick. If you've done the worksheet already, you'll know what I mean. 0.2499 to 3 decimal places, okay? So we need to know whether this stays as 9 or whether it goes up, okay? We need to look at that was terrible with circling. Let's circle one thing, there we are. We need to look at this, okay? Is it 5 or above? It is. That means that our 9 rounds up. What does 9 round up to? It rounds up to 10. But hang on, we've got room for one digit here. What do? This is what we do. 9 becomes 0, and we carry the 1 from the 10. So 4 becomes 5. And of course, we only want 3 decimal places, so this gets crossed out. So 0.2499 rounded to 3 decimal places becomes 0.250. Okay? Because when we round the 9 up, we have to carry the 1, and that affects the next column as well. Chubbs, 9 is coolest nubma. Just you are like nubma. Yeah, man. I have no idea what that means, but it kind of sounds mysteriously cool. Mazrua wants me to shout out Robert. Okay. Robert! Terrible. Yeah, if there's something you're going to get wrong in this paper, it's quite likely to be that one. Liguo says 0.25. Actually, no. You need to give this to 3 decimal places. So that means 0.250. Okay? 0.25, we'll be rounding it to 2 decimal places. 0.250 tells us that it's very close to 0.250, that it's not, for example, close to 0.254. So a little different. Okay, right, before we come on to this, let's take a brief break for a little bit of kind of publicity. I'm going to say, look at the links in the video description. No, I'm not. I'm going to say, here is an example of something that quite a lot of viewers have received. Ah, it's flipped. That's annoying. Can I unflip this? Can I unflip? No, let's not mess around with that right now. Let's not mess around with that. Oh, anyway, this is backwards. But this is an easy 11 plus pen, and it won't be backwards in real life. And if you can just about see, does that show? There we are. So it says live on YouTube at 6 o'clock every Tuesday. And it's got me shouting that at you angrily. And the Easy 11 Plus logo. What could be cooler than an Easy 11 Plus pen? It's a biro, clickety click. It's quite a satisfying click. Listen to that. Sounds so nice. Anyway, this too can be yours if you contribute really good comments in the live comments that I notice, if you write really good comments under the videos, if you contribute something to this channel that makes me want to reward you, I will post you an Easy 11 Plus pen, as long as you live in the UK. So yeah, that can be yours. And then you can go to school proudly using your Easy 11 Plus pen and saying to everybody, come and watch the Easy 11 Plus YouTube channel. What could be more magical? Right, let's go back to today's lesson. There we are. A lottery jackpot payout, I love that that's in quotation marks, of €1,275,363 was shared amongst 3 people. Okay, how much did each receive? Shared amongst 3 people, we can interpret that to mean shared evenly, shared equally, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to work it out. So we need to do a division. We've got 1, 2, 7, 5, 3, 6, 3 divided by 3. Okay, 3 goes into 1, doesn't. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 3 goes into 7 twice, remainder 1, 15. 3 goes 5 times. It goes into, yeah, it does. What am I talking about? It goes in 1, and then it goes twice, and then it goes 1. Okay, so how much did each receive? They each received €425,121. How much did each receive to the nearest €1,000? Okay, say the number aloud. 425,121 euros. So is it nearer to 425,000 or 426,000? So again, we're working out what our options are before we go on. So is 425,121 nearer to 425 or 426,000? Well, it's only 100, and if it was 425,921, that would clearly be nearer to 426,000. But if we imagine our number line, we're back down here near to 425,000. So that's clearly the answer to the nearest €1,000. You see what I mean? As you get used to doing these, you don't need necessarily to draw out the number line, because you can visualize where the answer's going. Now, part C here is a bit of an 11 plus anomaly. I don't think you are likely to be expected to know how to round to 2 significant figures. But because I found this question, which is from an 11 plus test, even if it's an old one, I am going to take the time to show you how to round to significant figures, because it's dead simple and it's really important knowledge in the future. And you never know. If by some crazy freak of unfairness it does come up, you will be the one who knows what to do. Or you'll be everyone who watched this video who knows what to do. So with a number like this, significant figures is really easy. The way significant figures works is rather than counting from after the decimal point, as you do with decimal places, with significant figures, you start counting from the first number that isn't 0. And then you count any number you run into, even if it is 0. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. You start counting from the first digit that is not 0, and then you keep counting as many places as you're told to, 2 places here, even if those places do include 0. Okay, so you only miss out zeros at the very beginning. I'll show you that in a bit with a different example. With this one, so it's 425,121. It doesn't matter which of these we take here. We count 2 places. So we count, let's write it out, let's look at it down here actually, makes life easy. So to 2 significant figures we go 4, 2, 2 is in the second place, and then we say, does that round up or stay where it is? So it's just like with the decimal, with rounding to decimal places now. So is the digit after it 5 or above? Yes it is, it's a 5. So that means we round up. So 425121 becomes 43, and because we're rounding, everything else becomes zeros. 0, 0, 0, 0. So what we're saying is that this becomes 430,000. In this case, rounding to 2 significant figures is actually the same as rounding to the nearest 10,000. Now, if you had a question like this, it could be a little different. Let's imagine a decimal. Let's just imagine a decimal that goes like this. So, let's do actually. Sorry, correction. I'm going to do this first of all. So we're going to round to 3 significant figures, which you can write as 3SF. Okay. Imagine our decimal is 2.0459. Okay. We need to round to 3SF. So what's our first non-zero digit? It's 2. So we count 2, 0, 4. 4 is our third one. Okay. Does 4 round up? Yes, it does, because the number after it is 5, so we have 2.05. Okay, that's 3 significant figures. If we rounded that to 2 significant figures, what am I doing? Why am I putting a dot after the 2? I do not know. It will be 2.0, because the number after the 0 is a 4, so that doesn't round us up. Okay, so here we're dealing with 3 and 2 significant figures. Right, now let's say that our number was 0.04592, okay? Let's say that was there, so it matches better. And now we have to round to 3 significant figures. So we start with the first non-zero digit. So we ignore this, and we start with this, okay? So we count 4, 5, 9. So 9 is our third significant figure. And then we say, does it round up? Well, the number after it is a 2, so it isn't 5 or above, so no, it doesn't round up. So this to 3 significant figures would be 0.0459. Okay, that is how you round significant figures. So it's starting with the first non-zero digit, and then it's counting along until the number of places you're told, 3 in this case, or 2 in the question. And then it's just doing the same thing that you do with decimal places, looking at the digit afterwards and saying, do I go up or do I stay down? And that's everything. If you don't understand that, don't worry. Okay. Right. People wondering how you email me if you've won a pen. You go to the RSL Educational website by pretty much any of the links in the video description. And so I shouldn't do that gesture, but I mean, come on. And then go to the contact page. You know how the internet works, people. You are the children of the internet. You're the generation that's supposed to know how to do everything online. And you don't know how to find a contact page on a website. Damien has a packet of frozen peas weighing 200 grams. There are 750 peas in the packet. He wants to know the mean mass of 1 pea. You know how to find the mean of something. If you don't, then have a look at my video on finding the mean and the median, all that kind of thing. Circle, in fact, I might have more than one video on that by now. Go in the channel anyway, you'll find it. Circle the calculation you must perform. Well, it weighs 200 grams to find the weight of 1p, the mass of 1p, he has to divide it into 750 bits. Okay, so I'm writing and thinking aloud. So 200 divided by 750, does that appear? Yes, 250 grams divided by 750. That's going to be how we find the mean mass of 1p. If we've got 750 p's and together they weigh 200, we need to find 1. So that's breaking that into 750 bits, which of course is a division. Right. Estimate to the nearest 10 grams the mass of 1000 p's. So clearly we could work out the mean mass of 1p. We could do 200 divided by 750, then we could times it by 1000. There was an easier way to do this. This actually, if you were watching the last lesson, which was 2 weeks ago because we skipped last week, I think it's easiest to approach this as a ratios question. So we know that 200 grams, in fact, grams and p's. Okay, so we know that 200 grams is the mass of 750 p's. Okay, so how can we get to 750 to 1000? Well, the easiest thing is divide it by 3 to get to 250, and then times that by 4 to get to 1000. Okay, dead simple in the end. So 200 divided by 3, I'm going to show you a cheat here, because you could work out 200 divided by 3. But we're just about to times this by something else. So rather than working out the answer precisely, much better just to write 200 divided by 3, which is in itself completely accurate, and save the calculation until the end. What's 200 divided by 3 times 4? It's 800 divided by 3. 200 times 4 is 800. So to find the answer, we have to do 800 divided by 3. But remember, we only need to find this to the nearest 10 grams. So once we know it to the nearest 10 grams, we can stop. 8 divided by 3 goes in twice, 6, 2 remaining, goes into 20 6 times, because 6 times 3 is 18, with 2 remaining, goes into 20 6 times with 2, hang on, it's 266 point something. To the nearest 10 grams, that's clearly 270. We've actually got the answer. So the answer is 270 grams. There are other ways you can do this. I think the question is steering you to find the average mass of 1p and times that by 1000. That's fine as well, but I think this is a bit simpler because we don't need to do lots of really fiddly calculations. We just divide by 3, times by 4, and then do the calculation. And once we got it to the nearest 10 grams, we don't need to go any further. This, in fact, is going to keep going on. It's going to be 266.66666666. Now, just to go back to this, if you'd actually worked that out, you'd have found that 200 divided by 3 is 66.666666666666. Okay, and then you'd have had to times that by 4, and it would just have been very fiddly. Much easier to do it the way that I've done it. Liguo says, how do you earn 11 plus pen? You do something really good. You write a really interesting comment, or I challenge you and you're the first person to a really good answer. But also you can write something really good in the permanent comments under the video, the ones that, you know, not the instant chat comments. So that's a really good way to earn a pen. So for example, people have put really good creative writing answers under some of my creative writing lessons. You could put a really interesting maths fact that you know, or particularly if it's relevant and it's going to help people on this topic. You could write that in the comments under here. There are all kinds of things you could do. You could invite lots of friends along and they all come and watch the lesson, and then you could say 4 of my friends came to watch the lesson today because of me, and then of course I would send you a pen as long as you're telling the truth. I have to trust you on that. All kinds of things you can do to earn a pen. I don't really have any rules about it. I just want you to earn it. Do something for the channel. A book has 256 pages with on average 33 lines on each page and 9 words in each line. Find an estimate for the number of words in the book. Okay, so there are different ways of approaching this that would not be quite right. You could estimate this by doing 256 times 33 times 9. And I can tell you, if you work that all out, you would get 76,032. Okay, I'll give you that for free. And that, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, it's the right answer, but it's not really an estimate, because you know that these are the average values. Okay, so that means that someone has already worked these out based on the total number of words. And so basically all you're doing is reversing that until you get to the actual number of words in the book, 76,032. So you're not estimating, you're finding the actual number of words. You could go to the other extreme. You could say that's about 200 times 50 times 10. Okay, so 50 times 10 is 500. 200 times 500, well, 2 times 5 is 10. Add 4 zeros, so we got 10, and 2, 3, 4. So it's about 100,000. Well, you compare these two numbers. You can see that estimate is so far out that it's barely worth doing. We need to estimate intelligently. The point of estimating is that we approximate our numbers closely enough and intelligently enough that even though we're doing a kind of back of the envelope, quick calculation, we still have something that's useful to us. So how can we do this? Let's write out the original numbers again. This is just me putting a little crib over there so we know what we're aiming for. Obviously in a test you wouldn't know this. 256 times 33 times 9 equals about. So 256 is very close to 250. Now you could say 260, but let's see whether 250 might be close enough. Okay, 33 is close to 30, so we've taken both of these down. Now when you're timing things together, if you're going to estimate, you need to move some down and some up, or you're going to end up pushing the result significantly down. Fortunately, we really want to round 9 to 10. And timesing the whole thing by 9 to timesing the whole thing by 10 is quite a significant move up. And that's going to counterbalance pretty well, I think, reducing 256 to 250 and reducing 33 to 30, which are in proportion, well, reducing 33 to 30 is in proportion quite a similar change, about a tenth, but this here is a pretty small change in proportion. So this is balancing out okay, I think. So what are we going to get? By the way, this sign here with the squiggly equals means is roughly equal to. Okay, it's an approximation equal sign. 250 times 30 times 10. Well, that's 250 times 30 times 10 is 300. Okay, so that's 250 times 3 times 100, so that's 750 times 100, which equals 750, and 2 more zeros because that's what you do when you times by 100. So is 75,000. And 75,000, as you can see, is actually, scroll that a bit, there we are, is actually really close to 76,032. This is a really good estimate. As estimates go, this is really close. So this is a good outcome. This is probably what they wanted. And what we've done, we've times everything together, and we've made sure that we're taking some slightly down and some slightly up, or one of them slightly up. And so it balances out at an estimate that we can be reasonably confident with. Strawberry Cloud's got 76032. That means that you weren't calculating an estimate, you were calculating the number of words in the book. Okay, so you weren't quite doing what's required. You need to find an estimate. You need to really pay attention to that when you see it in a question. You've just reversed the average, because to find the average, assuming it's a mean, what they did is that they took the total number of words and divided it by the number of pages to get the number of lines in each, and they divided it by the number of pages and so on, blah, blah, blah. What am I talking about? My brain's frying. Anyway, you just reverse engineered the mean to get the exact answer. You haven't estimated. Right, and a little bit more estimation. Yes, that is the quadratic formula, but that's not going to get you a pen. It's just a copy and paste of something you found online. Yeah, okay, there are lots of people here trying to get pens by copying and pasting maths facts. Now, it's going to be something that's... If you in the comments, and particularly in the real comments that come later after the video isn't live anymore, contribute something that will actually genuinely help people who were following this lesson, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Anybody can copy and paste something from Wikipedia. Which of the numbers, blah, 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 is nearest to the value of this? So rather than worrying about these numbers for the moment, let's try and find an estimate of this value here. Now this has got a multiplication in the middle. And remember what we just said about estimating a multiplication. Ideally, you want to take one number up and one number down. So what can we do with these? Well, let's write them out a little bit larger. 6.9201 times the square root of 26. What's the square root again? It means what number times by itself would give that. So what times by itself would give 26? So for example, 3 squared is 9. The square root of 9 is 3, okay? Square root of 9 is 3 because we're saying what times by itself gives 9. It's another way of saying 3 squared equals 9, okay? Square root of 26, well 26 is not in our square numbers times table. Let's go through it. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, 6 times 6 is 36, very close to 25. So if we could have this as 25, not 26, we'd have something that we could work with because we can find the square root of 25, it's 5, 5 times 5 is 25. So let's take this down, okay? So that's taking that one down. So we want to round this one up. 6.9201, what's that going to go up to? Oh, I don't know, maybe 7. So we can estimate this by doing 7 times root 25. The square root of 25, we just say root 25 for simplicity. 7 times root 25 is 7 times 5, which equals 35. So our estimate gives us 35. So which of these numbers is closest to the value of this? Almost certainly 35. We can be really confident of that. What made me start by estimating? Maybe I should have been a little clearer on that. We need to work out which of these things is nearest to the value of this monstrosity here. Now, without a scientific calculator, you are not in practice going to find the value of this. You could work out root 26, you could approximate root 26, I guess, through trial and improvement. So you could say 5 times 5 is 25, okay? That's too small. 6 times 6 is 36, that's too big. 5.5 times 5.5, and so on, okay? And then you carry on working through, getting closer and closer to 26 until you have a value that you're happy with. That's close enough, and then you times that by maybe 6.92, but you're still estimating in the end. It's just going to be a pretty precise estimate. What this is saying, here's something really complicated. You're not going to work this out in your exam with your 11 plus knowledge, so clearly you need to estimate it. The other clue we need to estimate is nearest to, which tells us we don't need an exact answer, and that's a big hint that we're looking for an estimate. Easy 11 plus Genius says, I'm confused. Nothing wrong with being confused. Have a go at it yourself, think about it, come back and watch this part of the video again and see whether it starts to make sense. I'm not going to go through it again now because I think I've actually explained it enough there. It's just that it might need a little time for it to sink in. It might need a few passes. Right, okay, fantastic. Let's go on to today's Okay, so today's tip of the week. Well, I've been thinking a little bit more about spellings that I've spoken about before. I've given lots of tips about learning your most common 20 spelling mistakes or whatever, and how that will really improve your spelling performance. Another thought this time is that sometimes where a word is difficult to spell, you can learn a useful mnemonic, which confusingly begins with the letter M, mnemonic, so it was written, but mnemonic, to remember the spellings of words. So for example, necessary is a word that people commonly get wrong, and so I always learnt that as never eat cereal except some Sundays, and so on. So I got the NECESS. Another one was suggested to me today, coffee and 2 sugars. 1 coffee, 2 sugars. 1 C, 2 S's. So that's a mnemonic for remembering how to spell the word necessary. And these can be really, really helpful. But no mnemonic is as useful as one that you come up with yourself. So you were asking about how to earn Easy 11 Plus pens. I've got a little bit of a challenge for next week, which is to come up with some mnemonics of your own for words that you find difficult to spell. So think of a word that you often spell incorrectly, or that you know lots of other people spell incorrectly. Come up with a clever mnemonic, so a little phrase or a useful image that you could remember that will make sure that you always know how to spell that word, like coffee and 2 sugars, CSS for necessary. And then next week, share your ideas with me. And if you come up with something that I think is really good, that will earn you an Easy 11 Plus pen. Okay, as long as I haven't sent one to you already recently. But there is one important rule to this, which is honesty. Do not look up answers online. Do not ask your friends. Do not go to your English books and pull things out from there. I don't know all the mnemonics. If you cheat, yeah, you'll probably get away with it. But please don't. Come up with your own ideas. That's what I want to see next week. So the tip of the week is use mnemonics for learning difficult spellings. And with that is the challenge of coming up with your own, sharing them next week, and if they're good, earning an Easy 11 Plus pen. Please don't all come up with mnemonics for the word necessary. That was my example. Come up with some other words that people might find difficult. For example, can you come up with a good mnemonic for the difference between the words to, and to? For example, can you come up with a mnemonic for the 2 different punctuations of the word it's, or for the different versions of your or their? Okay? These common mistakes that people make, can you help other people out with a good mnemonic? Right, I think it's time for I'm cooking here even with the window open, so I'm just going to take a few questions and then we can all drift away into the sunset, or the not quite as sunset yet. Krishna says, did you make a video about approximation? I find this puzzling because you are literally watching my video about approximation. You've just watched 42 minutes of lesson about it. So the answer to your question is yes, but also, where have you been? This is approximation. Rounding is just another word for approximation. Happy elephants like little orangutans. Yes, that does help with the word hello, but does anyone find the word hello difficult to spell? I'm not sure that they do. So I think that might be a solution in search of a problem, as people say. Okay, right, I've got questions here anyway. Save your mnemonics for next time. That's when I'm going to be evaluating them. Tony Cotton, my letter came, but the envelope was ripped and the pen isn't in there. I'm so sorry. Easy 11 Plus pens are obviously so popular that people steal them. Yeah, absolutely, I'll send another one. But please could you email me a reminder to do so? And then I'll make sure that you get it. In fact, I'll write a quick note. There we are. Tony Cotton pen. There we are. Hopefully I'll remember now. Send me a reminder anyway. Are there any questions that aren't mnemonics? Please stop typing on mnemonics now. I can't see the questions. Could you do vocabulary videos that teach you words and their synonyms and definitions? Loads of other people have done that already, so I'm not convinced that would be so useful. And there are so many words out there. Sadia, how to overcome stress in the 11 plus? Yeah, lots of people ask this, and that's because it's a really good question. I think that the most important thing is to just stop and take stock. You are here watching these lessons because you are someone who works really hard, who's really motivated, who takes extra time to study. You're that kind of person. You are the kind of person who makes a success of life. Therefore, the 11 plus does not matter that much because you will do well wherever you go to school. And I think if you really absorb that fact, and it really is a fact, it's not just a sort of platitude I say to reassure you, I really think it's true. You don't need to stress about the 11 plus. Yeah, sure, obviously it's nice for your self-esteem and so on if you do well in the exam, and you can be proud of it for a bit until everyone's forgotten anyway. But at the end of the day, what matters is your attitude to everything you do. And if you have the attitude that you already have, you'll do really well in life. So that's why you shouldn't stress. It's the most important reason. At the end of the day, a lot of it's out of your hands. You go into an exam, whether they happen to test the things that you're strong on is out of your hands. There'll be lots of elements of luck, just how you feel on the day. You can't control all of that. So there's no point stressing about things that you can't control. Good question. Parminder, if I subscribe, can I get a pen? No, I'm not going to bribe you to subscribe. You should subscribe because you want to follow the channel because it's useful. 11 Plus Master says, you didn't get me an easy 11 Plus pen. That's probably because you didn't earn one. And if you did earn one and I said I should send you one, then it'll be because you didn't email me with your address. But probably you haven't earned one yet. Can you do a lesson on area formulae next week? I think I've covered areas of shapes before. But not next week. I've done 2 maths lessons in a row, but maybe I should cover it again at some point. Ho, ho, ho. Are there any other people that you recommend me to see their videos? To be honest, I'm not actually that much of an expert on 11 Plus videos online. I mean, there's lots of good stuff from Khan Academy, isn't there? Lesson Aid does loads of videos. It's great that's done by someone else who's young and quite recently done their 11 Plus. I'm not that clued in on who's doing what beyond that. It's terrible, isn't it? Not many questions this week. Loads of people just posting. Can you do a video about MCQ? I've got squizillions of videos about multiple choice comprehensions, especially, and multiple choice reasoning and so on. Squizillions. Just look on the channel and look at the playlist for those things. Right, I think that's enough for today. I think we've gone long enough. There aren't many questions, which is great. So I'm going to wrap up. It's been fantastic to have you here. Thank you for your questions, even if, haven't been that many, but well done for asking the ones you have. Fantastic contributions during the lesson. That's brilliant. Get involved, earn your Easy 11 Plus pen. I'm going to put a link to buy these in the shop on the website as well, so you can get them that way. And yeah, please explore the links in the video description. There are links to lots of useful free things and also some even more useful not free but still really good value things. Don't forget to be back here next Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock for my next Easy 11 Plus live lesson. And if you're watching this not live, you will see a link pop up here, something like about now, to, that's it, I've managed it, to another video that will be really useful for your studying. So click that if you want to carry on and learn even more. It's been fantastic to have you here. Enjoy the summer, it's finally here, and I'll see you next Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock. Bye bye.